Greetings, this is the Grumpy Old Slan, and today we're going to be looking at 5th level magic user spells in Unearthed Arcana. So as we can see from the list, there are 30 spells, of which 6 are new, and these are the ones we're going to be looking at today. And the first spell is Avoidance. It has a range of 1 inch. It will last until dispelled, has a casting time of 3 segments, and the area of effect is up to a 3-foot cube. By means of this spell, the caster sets up a natural repulsion between the affected object and any living things. Thus, any living creature attempting to touch the affected object will be repulsed, unable to come closer than 1 foot, or will repulse the affected object depending on the relative mass of the two, i.e., a lone halfling attempting to touch an iron chest with an avoidance spell upon it will be thrown back. A dozen such halflings would find themselves unable to come within 1 foot of the chest, while the chest would skitter away from a giant-sized creature as the creature approached. The material component for the spell is a magnetized needle. Because the spell cannot be cast upon living things, any attempt to cast avoidance upon the apparel or possessions borne by a living creature entitles the subject creature to a saving throw. The reverse of this spell, Attraction, uses the same material components and sets up a natural attraction between the affected object and all living things. The creature will be drawn to the object if the creature is smaller, or the object will slide towards the creature if the creature is of greater mass than the object. A successful bend bars roll must be made to remove an object once it has adhered to another object or creature in this fashion. There are a few things that aren't 100% clear to me, and I think any DM will need to think about it if this spell is introduced in the game. If you can't come within a foot of an object, does this mean you can perhaps manipulate it using a 10-foot pole or any such long object, or is that considered part of a person? I would tend to rule no. It could be interesting to use this spell on, for example, stones that are part of a wall. I would assume that this could maybe be used to block a hallway. If the magic user casts this on a door, it could prevent anyone from approaching it, assuming they're not big enough to cause it to leave its hinges. I think there's quite a bit of potential for a clever player or DM to use this spell. Clearly, this is meant more as something to be used within a dungeon environment or the city environment rather than the wilderness. I'm a bit of two minds on this spell, mostly because there's a lot left open that the DM will need to figure out before it's introduced in the game. A clever player can come up with some really interesting and fun things, which makes me like it. Next is Dismissal. It has a range of 1 inch, a permanent duration, a casting time of 1 round, and the area of effect is 1 creature. By means of this spell, a magic user on the prime material plane seeks to force or allow some creature from another plane of existence to return to its proper plane. CF, 4th level cleric spell, Abjure. The name of the type of creature to be returned must be known, and if it has a given proper or surname, this too must be known and used in the spell. Magic resistance, if any, is checked for effect immediately. Then the level of the spellcaster is compared to the level or number of hit dice of the creature being dismissed. If the magic user has a higher number, the difference between his or her level is subtracted from the saving throw score of the creature to be affected by the dismissal. If the creature has a higher level or higher number of hit dice than the level of the caster, then that difference is added to its saving throw score. Exception: if the creature desires to be dismissed, then only an unmodified saving throw is needed. Certain arcane works are reputed to allow greatly enhanced chances for spell success. If the spell is successful, the creature is instantly whisked away, but the spell has a 20% chance of actually sending the subject to a plane other than its own. The reverse of the spell, Beckon, attempts to conjure up a known and named, if applicable, creature from another plane. Success or failure is determined in the same manner as for a dismissal spell, but in this case magic resistance is only checked if the creature has no known proper name. If the spell succeeds, the creature is instantly transported from wherever it was to the plane of the spellcaster. This does not guarantee that the beckoned creature will be kindly disposed to the magic user, nor will it in any way be subject to his or her wishes or commands without some additional constraint. Because of this, various sorts of protective measures are generally taken when using this form of the spell, and even with careful preparation, the result might be unwholesome. This spell does not work on creatures that are native to the prime material plane, but travel to other planes, such as Shadu, nor again creatures that have part of their ancestry in the prime material plane, such as Cambions. The material component of the spell vary with the type of creature to be dismissed or called. In general, items which are inimical and distasteful to the subject creature are used for a dismissal, and for a beckon spell, materials which are pleasing, desirable, and rewarding must be used. Clearly a spell to be used if you are dealing with creatures from other planes, which not every DM will allow in their campaign, meaning the spell at that point becomes useless and so you don't need to have it at all. If a creature is willing to submit to a spell, then the saving throw is usually skipped. It basically deliberately fails the saving throw. I don't see why it should be different with this spell, though I would still leave the chance of actually ending up in a different plane. And it's also too bad that you can't use this spell on creatures from the prime material plane, which means that if, for example, you have a party member who has been whisked away to a different plane, they can't be called back with this spell. I'm also surprised at the rather short casting time of the spell. I would expect it to be one turn or perhaps even 1 hour. Traditionally, any type of summoning of a creature from another plane is shown to take quite some time. I would also assume that you need to do some serious research in order to find out the information you need about whatever it is you want to summon. Another disappointing item is the mention of arcane works that could enhance the chances for the spell's success, mostly because in the DM's section of Unearthed Arcana, they don't discuss this particular spell, so there's no guidance for the DM on how to handle various things that could happen with this spell. But I think it's the kind of spell that's to be used for a very particular kind of campaign, and it's a kind that I've never really run. The next spell is Dolor. It has a range of 1 inch, duration of 2 rounds. It will affect one creature, and the casting time is 5 segments. By means of this spell, the magic user attempts to force compliance or obedience from some oppositely aligned or hostile creature from a plane foreign to that of the spellcaster. The Dwemer causes unease in the creature in question during its mere reading, and on the round thereafter the subject becomes nervous and filled with doubts, while on the last round of effect the creature actually feels a dull, all-encompassing dolor. The initial effects cause the subject creature to make all saving throws versus commands and non-offensive spells, including charms, at -1 on the dice rolled to determine whether or not it resists, the adjustment favoring compliance. The secondary effects cause the adjustment to go to -2. The tertiary effects brings with it an adjustment of -3. Thereafter, the creature is no longer affected and it makes further saving throws without adjustment. The verbal component of the spell must deal with the class of creature in questions, containing as much information as possible about the subject creature. When uttering the spell, the magic user can be mentally assailed by the creature if the subject has a higher intelligence than the spellcaster. In such cases, the creature has a 5% chance per point of superior intelligence of effectively charming and dominating the magic user. In the case of such control, the creature will then do with the spellcaster as its alignment dictates. If the spellcaster is distracted or interrupted during the casting of the spell, the subject creature is able to automatically effect the charm and domination. Another spell, kind of like dismissal, to use with creatures from other planes. I'd have to check the charm spell description, but I have some memory that a lot of creatures are not affected by it, and so it would have been nice to have a more complete list of the available spells that would be affected by this. This is a 5th level spell. It doesn't guarantee anything. It might help, but I'm not sure it is worth a 5th level spell slot. And again, it is clearly to be used in the kind of campaign I've not run. I could see how this could combine with dismissal or any other spell that allows you to conjure up creatures from another plane. I think there are better ways to try to attempt to control them. Next is Fabricate. It has a range of a half inch per level, a permanent duration. The area of effect is 1 cubic yard per level of caster. By means of this spell, the magic user is able to convert material of one sort into a product of desired nature, which is of basically the same material as was initially used when the Fabricate was cast. Thus, the spellcaster can fabricate a wooden bridge from a clump of trees, a rope from a patch of hemp, clothes from flax or wool, and so forth. Magical or living things cannot be created or altered by a fabricate spell. The quality of items made by means of the spell is commensurate with the quality of materials used as the basis for the new fabrication. If mineral material is worked with, the area of effect is reduced by a factor of 9, i.e. 1 cubic yard becomes 1 cubic foot. Articles requiring a high degree of craftsmanship, jewelry, swords, glass, crystal, etc., cannot be fabricated unless the magic user actually has great skill in the craft considered. Casting requires 1 full round per cubic yard or foot of material to be affected. This is the kind of spell I really like. Clever player can really use this to good effect for many, many things. They could also combine this with the material spell if they have it available, using the material spell to create the basic materials and then the fabricate spell to transform it into something useful. You could certainly use existing stones in a tunnel or the rocks of a cave to create a wall of some sort, blocking the way for pursuers. The casting time is long. You can use this spell in a hot pursuit, but certainly if you know you're being followed, it would be one way to seriously delay pursuers. It's clearly not a spell meant to be used in urgent situations, but it can be very useful if you apply a bit of imagination to it. The biggest point of contention will always be just how much a cubic yard of material will allow you to create. Some people will argue that it's the volume of the actual material that matters, not the volume of the finished product, which could be bigger. If I was to take 1 cubic yard of wood, I could certainly create a box with it that is much larger than 1 cubic yard. The spell also doesn't talk about things that are created with multiple materials. So they mentioned the wooden bridge. Does the wooden bridge have nails or is it only built out of wood, which is also possible? They mentioned clothes. What if you have buckles or buttons? They're not made out of flax, they're made out of any number of materials. Would one casting the spell be sufficient to manipulate all the materials needed to create a more complex object? Or will you need a different casting for each one? That is again something the DM will have to decide. I'd be tempted to go with the former since we're talking about one object, but all the materials, of course, would need to be on hand. Next is Leomund's Lamentable Belabourment. This has a range of 1 inch, a duration of special. It will affect one or more creature in a 1 inch radius, and the casting time is 5 segments. By means of this spell, the magic user causes a combination of fascination, confusion, and rage upon one or more creatures able to understand the language in which the spellcaster speaks. Upon casting the spell, the magic user begins discussion of some topic germane to the creature or creatures to be affected. Those not saving versus spell will immediately begin to converse with the spellcaster, agreeing or disagreeing, all most politely. As long as the spellcaster chooses, he or she can maintain the spell by conversing with the subjects. As long as there is no attack made upon them, they will ignore all else going on around them, instead choosing to spend their time exclusively talking and arguing. The saving throw and all saving throws in this spell is modified by the target's intelligence as follows. Creatures with intelligence of 2 or lower are not affected by the spell, but those with intelligence of 3 to 7 save at -1. Beings with intelligence of 8 to 10 save normally, those with intelligence of 11 to 14 at +1, and those with intelligence scores of 15 or higher at +2. If the spell is maintained for more than 3 rounds, each subject creature must attempt another save versus spell. Those failing to save this time will wander off in confusion for 3 to 12 rounds, avoiding the proximity of the spellcaster in any event. Those who make the confusion save are still kept in fascination and must also save in the fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds, or for as long as the caster continues the Dwemer to avoid the confusion effect. If the save is maintained for more than 6 rounds, each subject must save versus spell to avoid going into a rage, either at oneself if one is the sole object of the spell, or at all other subjects of the spell, and attacking, regular to hit probability, against one's own person, or falling upon the nearest other subject of the Dwemer with intent to kill. This rage will last 2 to 5 rounds. Those subjects who save versus spell on the rage check will realize that they have fallen prey to the spell and will collapse onto the ground, lamenting their foolishness for 1 to 4 rounds unless they are attacked or otherwise disturbed. If during the course of the maintenance of the spell the caster is attacked or otherwise distracted, he or she is still protected, for the subject or subjects will not notice. The magic user can leave at any time after the casting, and the subjects will continue on for 1 full round as if he or she were still there to converse with. In these cases, however, saving throws for continuance of the spell are not applicable, even if, for instance, the subjects would otherwise have had to save to avoid confusion or rage. Note that the spell is entirely verbal. An interesting spell for sure, one which I would imagine is mostly used in the kind of campaign that has a lot of social interactions, perhaps investigation, where the magic user will use this to distract a group of people while the rest of the party goes on to do something else behind their back. The advantage of this is that the spell should allow the spellcaster to make an exit once it ends, and anyone not affected by it seems to want to walk away in confusion. The only danger will be those people who pass the initial save. The administration of all these saving throws I find quite confusing. You roll for saves when the spell is cast. You roll again on the third round. You roll again on the fourth, fifth, and sixth. You then roll a sixth time for the rage. This also brings a little a point of vagueness in the spell is what happens with those who pass the save against the rage. Are they still in the fascinated stage, or will being attacked cause them to defend themselves? The chances of you getting a group of people to reach the point of rage is very low. Even if a saving throw is fairly high, say a 16 or higher, the odds of rolling high enough for 5 or 6 rolls is pretty good. I think this can nerf the spell quite a bit if you're trying to use it on a group. This spell probably will be more effective against a single target, since you'd probably know quite quickly if they pass or save. I would assume that those rolls are done in secret, so you don't know whether or not you've succeeded until you see how the NPCs have reacted to being subject to the spell. I think some clever players might come up with some interesting ways to use it. I'm still not sure it's worth a 5th level spell slot. Next is Sending. It will affect one creature and has a casting time of 1 turn. By means of this spell, the caster is empowered to contact a single creature with whom he or she is familiar and whose name and appearance are well known. If the creature in question is not on the same plane of existence as the spellcaster, there is a 5% chance per plane removed that the sending will not arrive, i.e., if the subject were 2 planes removed, there would be a 10% chance of failure. The magic user can send 1 word per level of experience with articles not considered, e.g., a, and the are not treated as words with respect to the message sent. Although the sending is received, the subject creature is not obligated to act upon it in any manner. The sending, if successful, will be understood even though the creature has an intelligence of as little as 1 factor, 1 point, or animal intelligence. The material component for this spell consists of 2 tiny cylinders, each with one open end connected by a short piece of copper wire. An interesting spell. There could be quite a few uses for it, though clearly the relatively long casting time does mean that it is not to be used for emergencies. In any kind of social or spying mission that takes quite a bit of time, this could be useful, either if the magic user is the one infiltrating and wants to send information outside, or if he is outside and wants to contact whoever's doing the infiltration to warn them of something. It could make for an interesting addition to that kind of game. Let us do a quick recap. Avoidance could be interesting, though I think you need to think about how you're going to handle certain situations. Both Dismissal and Dolor are spells for the kind of campaign I don't run. I'm a bit ambivalent about them because of that, but a lot will need to be thought about. Fabricate, I quite like. Few things you need to work out beforehand, but it has a lot of potential in a lot of different situations. Leomund's Lamentable Belabourment, I'm very ambivalent about. I think there are many things you could do with a 5th level spell slot that are much more useful and less chancy. And finally, sending. The ability to send a message, albeit a short one, is quite good. I would argue that the player should write down the message, and should there be a chance of failure, I would tend to rule that the magic user would not know whether or not the spell has failed to contact whoever the recipient was. It might also be interesting to play with that chance of failure if the magic user, for example, has an amulet of the plains or some similar magic item, then that could certainly reduce the chance of failure. So overall, I think several spells that I'm not too interested in personally. Doesn't mean they're bad. It's just I'm not very interested. A couple I quite like, and one that I'm very underwhelmed. This has been the Grumpy Old Slan looking at 5th level magic user spells in Unearthed Arcana, and I'll see you next time. Next is Leomund's Lamentable Bellerbor. Next is Leomund's Lamentable Bellerbor.